name is John Petrosky, and I am Olivia Petrosky's dad.
What is it like to have a daughter with a cleft lip and palate?
I would say it's just like having a daughter, a very special daughter that you love and care for, and there were certain things that we had to work around when she was younger, but you know, you learn to work through those things. I think it makes us closer in a way, seeing all those challenges that you've gone through, and all the things that you know, as a family we've come together and worked on, and you know, met that next challenge head on. You know, it's very impressive to see how everyone comes together during that time, and it's unlike any other experience, I think, really. So we're blessed to have had that happen in our lives.
Did you know about it before I was born?
We did not know that you were going to have a cleft lip and palate before you were born. Once you were born C-section, and once you came out, it was quite obvious, because it was a midline cleft, which is fairly uncommon. But looking at the ultrasound afterwards, we kind of noticed it. We were undoubtedly surprised when it happened, and then later on we kind of asked ourselves questions like, why didn't the doctor tell us? And we actually asked the doctor later, like, did you not recognize it either? And he said that he didn't at first, because it was a midline and it was so rare. And you know, he brought up a great point. He goes, what would you have done about it anyway? And that's an absolute great point, because we would have done nothing differently. Although I think, looking back on it, it would have been good, so that we would have been a little bit more prepared for those first few days. A midline cleft at the very beginning can be very difficult for hospital staff that have never dealt with that before, because eating is a little bit more problematic. Being able to get onto the bottle is a little bit more difficult. So it would have been nice to have that opportunity to research some of that ahead of time, instead of, you know, kind of watching you struggle for the first few days because you weren't getting enough to eat, and you were working so hard, and we couldn't figure out why, and all those sorts of things. So it would have been nice to know ahead of time.
How did you feel when you found out?
We had a lot of questions. You know, all of a sudden, you know, doctors are telling you you're just going to have a couple of surgeries and it'll be all fixed, and then, you know, a couple turn into 5, and 5 turn into 10, and then 10 turn into 15, and 15 turn into 20. So we learned very quickly just to take it one step at a time, one procedure at a time, whether it was, you know, getting your first obturator put in when you were about 3 days old, and, you know, having to turn you over to a doctor who's going to take you back into a procedure room to get one of those fitted. That was foreshadowing, because it becomes more and more difficult the more you have to do it. It never becomes routine, and so you're always just, you know, nervous. But no, I wouldn't trade any of those experiences for the world, for sure.
I am Rachel, and I am Olivia Petrowski's stepmother, and I have known her for at least 4 years, if not a little bit longer.
Did you have any preconceived notions about what challenges might be coming into a family with someone with a craniofacial difference?
I would say that because Olivia's family had been dealing with their medical history for so long, my husband did a really good job of preparing me. However, I don't think that anything can really prepare you for being there and witnessing a recovery from a surgery. He did a great job of letting me know what Olivia needed and how I could help, different things that we could work on together. But when it came to actually witnessing kind of what recovery looked like and how that was going to feel, I don't know that there is a way to really prepare for that. And it did take me a bit by surprise whenever Olivia did have a pretty major surgery.
My name is Cindy Dieter, and I'm a teacher at Clay City High School.
As a teacher with a cleft lip and palate, what was it like teaching a student with the same diagnosis?
Well, I think it helped me to understand them more because I've grown up with, well, not only my cleft lip and palate, but my father's as well. And so where a lot of other, teachers may not have been able to understand them because of the language or the speech part of it, I didn't have any trouble with that. And it also helped me to be more understanding in regards to what they were feeling and how they were being treated by others. So I think that helped me.
What are some misconceptions that you see people make about people with craniofacial differences?
I think a lot of times people just want to assume that you can't do things for yourself. They especially when it comes to the face, that's the first thing somebody says or somebody sees, and so they immediately have kind of that reaction because they look in the eye and they notice some differences, and they either want to think that you're not as smart, or that you can't hear, or that you can't speak, or that you can't do any of those things. And are there children with craniofacial differences that have those challenges? Absolutely. But I really wish people were more open-minded when they met you, and just treated you like they would treat anybody else at the beginning. And that happens a lot, that people treat you absolutely normally. But on the few occasions when you do notice that somebody is kind of talking down to you a little bit, as a parent, you get very, very protective over that.
What are some misconceptions people make about people with craniofacial differences?
I think a lot of times they think just because your face looks a little different that you have a learning disability as well. And that's not at all true. Because just because you might look a little different does it not mean your brain can't work.
How long did it take to adjust to any differences in my speech?
I would actually say that because of some of Olivia's really amazing clinicians, I don't know that there really have been a lot of concerns for me or a lot of issues with understanding Olivia. I think my biggest, when it comes to Olivia's speech, I think the thing that impacts me the most is when other people do. It's a different kind of frustration as a parent or a loved one when you see other people treating someone like their voice maybe isn't important because of maybe those difficulties. Really, I think for me, getting used to it wasn't a big deal, but getting used to advocating for Olivia was important to me and was kind of a new step for me.
What was it like watching someone you care about go through major surgery and recovery?
That was really hard for me, obviously. Any of my kids, if they were to have a surgery, it would be difficult. Olivia had a very major surgery last year, and it was incredibly difficult watching her go through that process, being there for it, going to the follow-up appointments, and really seeing the scope and the toll that kind of a medical condition can have on you, and surgeries can have on you. It was incredibly difficult, but also I feel like it helped us to become closer in some ways because I was able to better understand. Not being a part of her life early on, I didn't really know what it was going to look like. Now that I've seen it, I can kind of better understand what she went through as a child, and hopefully support her if there is ever another surgery.
What advice do you have for people being bullied for how they look?
When you get bullied, you kind of have to feel sorry for the bully a little bit, because if they're willing to make fun of you, that means they have some kind of deep problem themselves that they're trying to have everybody else overlook. And you've got to not let it bother you, although I know it's going to, but you can't let it bother you. You have to be the kind of person to overcome those obstacles and just be strong from it. And I really feel like that's why when people ask me about my, birth defects, it was more, I don't look at it as a defect anymore and more like a gift, because it made me stronger.
What advice do you have for other parents of children with craniofacial differences?
I am reminded of a situation we had with a geneticist team at the hospital. And they talked to your mother and I and your sister at the time as well about all the possible things that could be wrong with you because you had a midline cleft. And they went through this terrible list of things, like she could be blind, she may never walk it on her own, she may never do all these things that for parents of a new baby can be very, very frightening. And I remember walking out of that appointment mad, really mad, because I wasn't sure why a professional, medical professional would sit down a set of parents and list a whole bunch of things that they didn't know whether or not they were happening or not happening. We could have just as easily gotten hit by a bus on the way home, and that didn't happen either. So I think, just not putting limitations on your child, because your children will absolutely surprise you. If you think that they can run 10 feet, they'll run 20. And don't let somebody tell you what your child can and cannot do, because I promise you that if you let that child flourish like you would let any other child flourish, they will absolutely blow you away. I tell this story, and I tell this about the geneticist and everything to a lot of people, but I wish that I could build a time machine and go back to that day and go back to us standing in that parking lot with tears in our eyes out of pure fear, terror, if you will, over what we thought might happen. And I wish I could build that time machine and go back and just grab, just pat myself on the shoulder, have me turn around and from this day and age now, where you're 19, you're going to college, you're on the dean's list. And if I could tell myself that 19 plus years ago, and just say, it's gonna be okay. In fact, it's gonna be better than okay. It's gonna be amazing, and it's gonna be an amazing journey. It's gonna be bumpy, but it's gonna be an amazing journey. So enjoy it. Enjoy every minute of it.